Okay. Imagine a world where on the fly we're collecting data about students and we're able to learn what works not only in general but what works for specific populations of students. What works best to help each child learn? What are we going to need to get there? We're going to need a lot of things. First, we're going to need data from the students. And you would think that's fine. There's a lot of privacy issues involved, though. So, if a student's data is being released to researchers, what will that tell us about the student? Clearly, we'll need privacy protection in place, but we may need to revisit some state and local laws. We can't have educational researchers dealing with the patchwork regulatory environment of having to worry about the local school district of every student in the data set. That's just not a viable way to proceed. We're going to want to rapidly run studies. Google runs hundreds of studies every day. A-B comparisons comparing different interface elements. We need a way to rapidly iterate and try out different explanations. As soon as a teacher posts a new explanation, we'd like to start testing it. Do we have to get IRB approval from that? Do we have to get teacher permission to do that? Principal permission? We need a way to rapidly iterate through experiments to figure out what is most effective. So I think a big part of the community, we have to come together and think about what are the legal framework we want to operate under, student privacy protections, IRB. Some of these may need to be revisited in the digital age. Do they still make sense? We're no longer planning what's the study we're going to run next year. We're saying, oh, we have 20 studies we want to run next week. And what's a way of doing that using all of our data? And let's keep in mind, our big goal here is we want to make sure every child in America has the best opportunity possible to learn. Bottom line, that's what we're all focused on. We'd like to get there. How can we come together to make that happen?
Professor Beck, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How do K-arm bandits and these ideas of actually crowdsourcing kid explanations play into something like this, and what we need to think about in the future?
So good question. So a K-armed bandit is a way of saying, imagine you have a bunch of slot machines, it's a gambling metaphor, and you want to find out which one gives you the most payoff. You could say, what does that have to do with education? It's the same idea. There's a bunch of educational interventions we could use. We want to figure out which one gives the most educational payoff. There's been a lot of work in the in decision theory in the artificial intelligence community for what are the best strategies for figuring out which lever or which educational intervention is most effective and for when and for which student. But these are complicated algorithms. I can't tell you, oh, next week we're going to pull this lever 5 times and this one 6. On a second-by-second basis, it's deciding which lever should it be trying, which educational intervention should it experiment, and for which students. And that's happening on a continuous basis, where there's not, one human who can say what will happen next week. It's very rapidly shifting. That can be hard for an IRB board to wrap its head around, let alone a school teacher. All we can really say is, look, this is a strategy for figuring out whose explanation works the best. Or does a YouTube video or a worked example work better for Chris, who's struggling on systems of linear equations? Which one works better? Well, there's some artificial intelligence code behind the scenes trying to figure that out. And I can't tell you exactly what will happen next. All I can say is, as scientists, this is our best bet for what will help Chris the most.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.